Hey, it's me.
She's a former mayor. They're a former evangelical pastor with dissociative identity disorder. These two like to talk about the topics you're not supposed to talk about. They might cause you to perspire just a bit, but they'll definitely make you inspired. Let's talk religion and politics, and what spirituality and emotional well-being look like in a post-evangelical world. This is Paul and Ashley on Evangelicalish.
All right. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
We're up close and personal to start on the live stream this week.
Gosh, I wasn't really ready for that, to be honest. Like being so zoomed in on our faces.
Me either. But here we are.
Oh my gosh. So
happy 2025.
Happy 2025.
Everyone.
And we've been off for, has it been 2 weeks or 3 weeks? It seems like
2, I think.
Probably like
2?
3 months or something. But yeah, I think it's just been 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah, but gosh, seems like it's been a long time. And we're in that sort of weird nether region now of not quite holiday, not quite back to work, but
yes, but we're still eating like candied almonds left over from Christmas Eve. Yes, like it's still sitting on the counter in the little dish with all the compartments, and I'm still eating it. So yeah.
But we did take down Christmas fairly early so that we could go to a trip to the coast and come home and not have Christmas stuff to take down and have to worry about.
I have to say, this may be on record our best family Christmas, New Year's yet.
I think I probably would vote for that, yeah.
And maybe the exception being the year we got our family dog Pudgy, which was 11 years ago. And like, if you asked any of the four of us, our 2 kids or us, like, what was your best Christmas? It'd be like, oh, the year we got Pudgy. But I think this year, it was just, honestly, it was, everything about it was so lovely, so wonderful. We had our daughter home for 2 weeks. We had like week 1 was holiday stuff, right? Like, you know, the excitement around baking for Christmas and having Christmas Day and, you know, Christmas shopping after. So we had week 1 was Christmas, staycation. Week 2 was vacation over to the Central Coast. And then week 3 this week is like chores and get ready for the year. So I'm still off work this week. So it's
you are like deep into closet cleaning, which you love, but I think it's starting to get to you.
It's taking out of me. This is this, and our friend Gladys is on too. We've been texting today. She's doing the same thing that I'm doing. So yes, anyone who knows me, I would say for at least the last 15 years, every holiday I take, I'll either do it during the summer or during the Christmas holiday. And I pick kind of one area of the house and I go into such a deep cleaning, organizing jag that I almost vomit at the end of the day because I'm so tired. So, but this year is the hardest because I've decided this is our first empty nester year. And I think that's what it is. So our son has moved out. He moved out Memorial Day weekend. And so this is the year I went into all the kids' like school memorabilia boxes. Like every year of their school career, I have a lot of stuff saved. So
nonstop
that's like
today, nonstop. Oh. I'm getting text from this person on the screen with me, but like, oh, look at this. Oh, look at this look what Sam wrote in 3rd grade. Oh, look at Sydney's shoes from first grade. It was trip down memory lane.
Hilarious. Sure. And I think the kids like to see it, you know, and that's why you keep it, is because there needs to be at least a couple times in your life when you get this stuff out and like feel good about it. And you don't want it just to be like, you know, your kids going through your stuff when you pass away. But today I found a like plaster mold of our son's thumb in 3rd grade. Just like sticking up, just like, why did the teacher have the children just do like a plaster mold of 1 digit?
And you're like, oh, look at this. And our son is like, that's gross. You know? Throw that thing away.
I know. I don't know. So that's been, it should be I should be like refreshed sitting here like, oh, we haven't done ish in 2 weeks. I'm so excited. But I'm honestly, I'm about to lose my voice because I have inhaled so much dust in the last 24 hours.
And then we went to the coast, central coast of California, Pismo. And by the way, I'm not going to say thoughts and prayers because that makes me throw up in my mouth, but our thoughts are with people in Palisades who had to sprint literally from their homes as fire came. And we remember when our daughter had to do that a few years ago while she was living in Malibu and had to jump in a car with 5 of her friends and drive up here ahead of, with almost nothing they could carry because fire was threatening the campus at Pepperdine. So yeah, it's just been
it's crazy. In fact, I'm looking at an LA Times breaking news: fire burning in the Hollywood Hills near Runyon Canyon. Our daughter was in West Hollywood. I have a friend who lives in the Hollywood Hills, and he sent me a picture of earlier today of. He's like, this is no filter. This is literally what LA looks like right now. And he says, it looks like Mordor from Lord of the Rings. And it's just total orange. It is absolutely apocalyptic, devastating, terrifying. Jesus, man. Oh God, it is. Oh my God. Sorry. I'm just so concerned. And yeah, anyone who has loved ones or who may be in that region, boy, it makes you want to like get your shit together and like fireproof your community and build resilience and build the infrastructure and underground power lines and all that stuff.
Yeah. I think in a lot of ways we've overgrown, and we probably have people living where they shouldn't be living, and we've been in drought for a long, long time, and we don't seem to care that we're in drought for a long, long time. And
well, it's a weird thing though, too, because it's like, it's actually, we've had many wet years in a row. And I need somebody to explain this to me. I've heard little bits and pieces. I really want to understand how this works, but it's like, because of all that rain, there's all this overgrown vegetation. So that's the fuel for the fire. So I don't know that it's dry. It's just, and you need as Antifa you was just saying, you need the controlled burns and the native vegetation. And like, it takes so long to get that put back in place.
And again, I think because we probably have houses where there shouldn't be houses in some places, then you don't have the nature lightning strikes that cause fire, that burn off stuff that needs to burn off so that new stuff can grow and all of that stuff. And of course, our incoming president, instead of like caring about people that are losing their houses, he's taking shots at our governor, and that's where we are.
I was still in like my holiday bliss mode, and then you just popped that bubble real good. I had like questions ready for you of like recapping the holidays.
Okay, all right, you want to do that? I know, but by the way, Pismo on the Central Coast is kind of our place, but absolutely the perfect weather. We've never had
gorgeous
better weather in Pismo, where it's just cool enough that you're a little bit cold, but you can wear shorts if you want to. You're not freezing your ass off. That summer in Pismo, you usually like freezing your ass off, but New Year's it's usually not. But it was perfect.
Well, and I wanted to just show off for those of you who may be catching this live or who are watching the video after it's posted. I wanted to just give a little shout out to one of my favorite Christmas presents to myself this year is this coffee mug that I bought at our favorite little coffee spot there called the Honeymoon Cafe. And I'm enjoying this is my coffee mug for 2025. I'm enjoying drinking out of it.
Isn't it great when you get the perfect coffee mug? I'm holding one up for those who are listening. This one's from S-Bucks, but it is like the perfect size. It's beautiful colors. The picture I believe is ASL for connection. I mean, it's just a beautiful cup, but it's the perfect size, perfect weight. I love drinking coffee out of this mug.
And it always matches your nails. I've noticed you always have like when you hold it, your nails are like blend into the multicolor of the cup. So it's, yes.
Well, there's so many colors in there. It'd be hard not to match it.
That's true. But your nails are always pretty colorful. So something between green and purple. So you're good. Okay. I have 2 prompts for you, and I decided This is one of the really fun things I like to do is play my version of Stump the Host and
Okay.
not tell you in advance that I have questions lined up for you and just see what you say. Okay. So number one question, and you can't say time spent with family or any other experiential thing. What was your favorite Christmas present this year?
My favorite Christmas present. What? Gosh, that's so long ago. I can't really
It could be
remember.
little or big, just the thing that you're like, oh, I'm really excited about this thing that I got.
You got me a pair of Skechers. I'm loving the Skechers.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
a Sketcher now. Yeah.
That and they look really, really good on you. They're those slip-in ones that they
You don't have to
advertise as
bend.
like
You don't have to bend over to put on. That's what
you
I
don't
love
even
about
have
them
to
as
bend
much as
over
in.
to put your shoes on.
You
It's
don't
like
have to bend over
a
to put them on.
patented.
You don't need a shoehorn.
Yeah,
You don't have to
no.
tie them. No, it's not even Velcro. You just step right in, and I
People
love it.
love those things. I've been hearing about them for all year, so I got you a pair. And it's funny because they advertise them as like high tech. It's like, thanks to blah 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 technology, you don't have to bend over anymore. It's like hilarious. But you are loving them and they're very fashionable. So yay
Yeah.
on that. Okay. My second question, and this is all I have for you. Your best meal, like the tastiest, most wonderful meal that you had for this holiday break.
Now that is brutally tough because we had so many great meals over the holidays.
Yeah.
We really went over, but I'm there's a place in Pismo called Giuseppe's, and it can't be beaten. It's our
Love it.
place. We go every time we're there. What did I had the I can't remember what they called it, but it's butternut squash pasta, and it's just, oh my gosh. But next time we go, I got the eggplant parmigiana appetizer, and
Yeah.
I'm going to get that as
Your
my
entree.
main dish
Okay.
next time, because that was unbelievable.
We yes, that was such a fun night. It's just this family restaurant. I think it's been around 50 plus years. Got burned down by a fire. They rebuilt it, and they don't take reservations. So you're going to wait at least an hour, and you just plan on like send somebody over to sit outside starting at 4 o'clock, and like maybe you'll get a table by 5:30. Well, that is exactly what happened. Of course, now our kids are old enough to sit in the bar. You guys, this is a whole new world. Like drinking with your children in a responsible manner, of course, is so much fun. And they enjoy themselves and like their family time so much more.
This was actually going to be my what's on my mind today.
Okay.
You have to take a tequila shot with your kids at some point in your life, which we did.
So that ended up being, we end up getting the corner booth of the whole restaurant after waiting for an hour and a half, and it's like right in front of
this is not what our podcast episode is about, by the way.
Oh, shoot, it's not. And now we're past our time, but I'll land it here. So we're enjoying, like, we keep thinking of like, what's another course we can get, because we want to just extend. We've waited for an hour and a half.
The waiter came with the check like 4 different times.
And we're like, how about some gelato? Yeah, okay. How about some, more wine? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so we get to the very end of the meal, and then somebody, I don't remember who, is like, let's do a tequila shot. Who even thought of that?
It's got to be our son.
Probably our son. So anyway, we all did, and we all survived.
And now we have people telling stories in the chat of when they, got to like smoke. We also had cigars. Now you and our son are not cigar smokers, or
yeah, if I'm outside, I don't mind the smoke, but I'm not a cigar smoker.
But we sat on the roof of our Airbnb and had cigars. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. Okay. And before we jump in, I want to say hello to Kelly Dalton, who is from the Memphis area. I met her when I was on the 1946 tour, which, by the way, Rocky Roggio said they sold our RV. So I don't know what happens to our trip next year, but and Kelly jumped on as a new subscriber this week. So thank you, Kelly. And you know what? I know we're supposed to be jumping into the topic here because we're going to talk about why I'm done and why Ashley is just starting. But Kelly, I want to read what she wrote. She said, After meeting Unconventional Pastor Paul back in Memphis, I began following the podcast and just today caught up and listened to the 1231 episode. I want to tell you both how much I appreciate you. The pod has been absolutely wonderful and helpful in my deconstruction journey. I was listening while cleaning today and had to stop and sit down when Paul talked about his history of self-harm ideation. It was heart-crushing. I was able to see your heart, blah, 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 blah. I'm saying blah, 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 because I just want to get through some of the stuff talking about donating, which was very kind of her. And she said, what you're doing helps people more than you know. And she also purchased a copy of my novel.
So wonderful.
Religious Right, Religiously Wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Kelly. Honestly, like that one comment, and other comments that you all share during the live stream here keeps us going. It's doing these podcasts is for one thing, it's fun for Paul and me. It's a little bit of our hobby, but also it's weird because you have no idea like kind of where your reach ends up. It's different from like on a Sunday morning, Paul getting up and preaching and you see every face that you're talking to and you get that feedback or whatever. Not the same with doing these podcasts. So we certainly love to hear what's going on with all of you. Like send us emails, let us know what's coming up for you. It definitely informs the kinds of things we want to spend our time talking about and what we want to make room for here during these weekly podcasts, ideas for guests that you'd like to have on, etc. It's good. It's just good to be connected with all of you.
We love the encouragement and we love the subscription. So go to evangelicalish.com and sign up to subscribe.
So yeah, subscribe and support. It is just very encouraging. And in this day and age, and particularly in the social media ecosystem that is like, I don't know, like a fire tornado all the time of shit. It's good when you're actually connecting with people who are like-minded and like are just grateful that you're doing what you're doing. So appreciate it.
And one other note for those listening live, Friday, we will have another live stream. We're going to have an early recording for next week's podcast. Amber Cantorna Wild is going to join us live Friday at noon Pacific because she couldn't join us on a Wednesday night, and she's so good. We can't wait to talk to her. Amber's father, I think, may have been the original designer of, if not, he was a leader on the team of Adventures in Odyssey. Do you all know what Adventures in Odyssey is? It is a little kids indoctrination show for from Focus on the Family. So Amber grew up in Colorado Springs, her dad working for James Dobson, and then she came out of the closet and has quite a story to tell. And she is a fabulous dynamic speaker, another person I met on the tour. And so we're talking to her live Friday at noon Pacific.
Going through all of our kids' boxes of materials from their, grade school days today, it's so easy for me to remember the little voices in the back seat in their car seats of excitement with listening to Adventures in Odyssey. Like that, I can just reach back and it just feels like it just happened like 2 weeks ago or something like that. I for sure lost touch. So I'm anxious to learn more from Amber, and that's going to be a good show. Friday bonus week, 2 issues in 1 week.
Yeah. So let's talk the topic. And I would love to hear from people in the comments on Facebook, YouTube, and all of you over on Instagram. Are you New Year's resolution people? Yes or no? Why or why not? And if so, what is your New Year's resolution this year? I am not generally a New Year's resolution person, and I've thought it kind of flippant and silly for a long time. But this year, and this may apply to both of us, but for me, for sure, smoking a cigar on the roof of the Airbnb in Pismo, I really felt this year that there was a significance in the change from 2024 to 2025, and I'm sort of living in a New Year's resolution space, and it's been impactful for sure.
Yeah, and so you're gonna kind of unpack that for us, right? Like,
I didn't know if you
I
wanted me to jump into it right now. I wanted to give you space to talk about
yeah,
New Year's resolutions for you too.
I will say this. Okay, probably similar to you. Okay, and just to make the point, like most of the time, I really try to avoid making a New Year's resolution for all the reasons, right? Like I don't want 2 weeks from now to be, like beating myself up for not carrying through my resolutions, etc. So last year, I like tripled down on that concept. And I was like, not only am I, well, actually, I'm going to make some New Year's resolutions, but they are going to be so easy and dumb that I'm going to just get a kick out of it. So, but one of them I didn't even get done. And that is my first one was I wanted to drink a bottle of wine a week.
Yeah,
Like
I
I wanted to
remember
be
that.
more of a wine drinker because I don't really drink that much. I only really kind of drink when I'm out and it's only like one glass of wine. And I'm around all these people who are sophisticated and really have cultivated like a good palate for wine. I was like, you know what? I am 50 plus years old. What am I waiting on? If I want to drink wine by myself with dinner one night a week or 2 nights a week, whatever, I'm going to do it. So I did that one. But you know what? I couldn't get down a bottle of wine a week. So it was more like one bottle every 2 weeks. And then it went to a month. So I failed on that one. But my other New Year's resolution that I absolutely crushed was
And this is going into 2024 you're talking about,
the
right?
2024. The whole
Yeah.
point of this long story is that I hate New Year's resolutions normally, so much so that I actually committed to really stupid things in 2024, but I'm having a different experience in 2025. So my second 2024 New Year's resolution was to watch every episode of Real Housewives of Atlanta, of every season, of every episode of every season. And I don't want you to think I sit around just like watching TV. I do this while I'm doing chores.
This is
I'm like
your
while I'm
mindless
getting ready in the
backdrop as
morning.
you're
Yeah. So not only did I get that done, probably by April, I want to say, I ended up watching every episode of every cast of Real Housewives. So like I had a huge sense of accomplishment from that. And
we all have our goals. We all
I
have our
mean,
goals.
and now I'm just like totally current, like sitting around waiting for like the new shows to drop this week. So
It's
anyway.
And this is not to act superior because I watch trash TV as well.
Yeah, you do. I agree that you do.
Yes, but that show drives me insane, absolutely insane.
Like all the casts or Atlanta in particular?
I can't tell one from another. You were watching something called what? Medical Wives or something?
Married to Medicine. Well, because I got through all Real Housewives. So then I had to go to like an offshoot. And a friend of mine at work was like, you know what? You'd really like Married to Medicine. She says, and I quote, she says, the relationships are real. It's a very genuine, like very genuine friendships on the show. I'm still waiting for that. I haven't seen it.
I was like, if I don't get out of this room, I'm going to poke a pencil through my eyeball. So it was, So,
but 2025 is different for me. I actually have some. I'm going to call them intentions, not resolutions, but I have some like kind of serious and then kind of fun resolutions for you.
But first, Antifa U, which I'm dying to know where Antifa U is from and where that name comes from, by the way. But says, Paul, you're very lucky to have a wife whose New Year's resolutions are to watch more TV and to drink more alcohol.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah, I'm kind of wound tight though, is the thing. And I'm a pretty serious person. Like so many hours of the week.
This I can attest to. Yes.
That's me trying to be like, hey, chill out, girl. Like just kind of like don't take yourself so seriously.
The problem is when you drink alcohol, it's like 15 minutes and you're like, I gotta go to bed.
The older I get, the more wine actually keeps me awake. And this is a scientific thing someone needs to explain to me. Why is wine keeping me freaking awake? Anyway. So
for me,
let's talk about you.
Enough about you. Let's talk about me. I've been playing with for some time since I went on my mushroom journeys the idea of, death as being a start of something new, as death being a part of the seasons of life. And that's just what it felt like 2024, which I thought was kind of a wretched year in a lot of ways, and difficult for me. It's out of its nutrients going into the ground in the death of the end of 2024. New life could spring out of it in 2025. So as I was just sitting around, I wasn't really thinking about resolutions or anything. I just kind of got this sense in my spirit. It may have been one of my parts talking to me, I don't know, but I just kind of heard this phrase, "I'm done." And that's part of the title of this show. I'm done. And Ashley's just getting started. And so I was thinking about, I'm done. What does I'm done mean? And it really dawned on me, our major argument is like, do we criticize evangelicals or do we try to build bridges with them? And I have felt for sure that and I still think so, sort of my call was in this last season has been, go speak truth to evangelical people. They will not be able to hear you, but still do it. I felt like that was my call. And I now feel like that's done. I feel like that message has been out there, not just from me, but others. And the evangelicals have said, "Nah, we're good. We're good. We'll go with what we're doing." And so I just feel like I'm released from that part of my purpose. And I really get to start to focus now on what does the spiritual life for those of us who aren't caught up in this craziness of this season. But I guess the last thing I would say in this, so I'm done trying to tell people turn back, the bridge is out ahead, which I felt my message was. And now it's, how do I save people who have eyes to see and ears to hear as things come tumbling down around us? And I just have a lot of peace from that, a lot of peace. So yeah, that feels very significant in the season spiritually for me.
You came back from that walk. You went to the pier on Saturday and you came back, and I think we were maybe starting to drive back to Fresno, where we live, from the Central Coast. And you just kind of made that statement in passing. And I was like, whoa, like, that's very significant. What you just said is very significant. And having been on this journey with you for 31 plus years, I know, like, you're in your spirit there, like, you are really clear on like seasons and like, this shift happened. It's that right now, or whatever. And that, like, it's really stood out to me as like, oh my gosh, we got to pay attention to this, because I didn't know, like, you were going, I don't think you were like out there exploring the question of like, what should I keep doing what I'm doing? It just, I think it just kind of came to you, and it was like just a gut punch shift, right? That's kind of,
yeah, you're right. Now that you mentioned it, I was thinking I was up on the roof, but I was walking out on the pier at Pismo. Yeah. And yes, it came out of nowhere. It's what, definitely in our religious history, I would have said, God gave me a word. God gave me a word. But now I would probably change that language to say, just in my spiritual connection to divine wisdom and divine love, I heard inside myself, I'm done. I'm done. And it just, with that came a release and peace. And it bears to other things in my life as well. But certainly in this realm of this podcast and others, it's moving into a look at what does spirituality look like, and how do we ally for one another, as I think we will see. Another one of my mantras is, I don't think we're going to be okay in this next season, but it's okay that we're not going to be okay. And how do we ally with each other in that?
And for those of you who may not have heard our last podcast, I would encourage you to go back and listen to it, because I told the story of this dream that I had about the Trump presidency won.
Right.
And just this whole idea of like, when you say it's not going to be okay, but it's okay that it's not okay. For me, that's sort of the feeling I've always had, which is like, all this stuff is very destructive. It is not okay. And there is good that will come from it, like, which I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's a little bit of what I hear you saying.
Well, I am becoming convinced that maybe this is how humanity advances, that
Yeah.
I call it 10 steps forward, 6 and 3/4 back, that things have to fall, things have to rise, and things have to fall. And so to me, this season feels, and I know people disagree with me in this, but it feels very much like the time in the story from the Hebrew scripture when the people said, "We want a king. Give us a king. We want a king like our neighbors have. We want him to be the guy. We want him to look like the guy," and all of that. And so God tells the prophet Samuel, that's a really bad idea. But if they want it, the people have spoken. That's what they get.
Yep.
And they got King Saul. And God tells them, this guy is going to take your daughters from you. He's going to put tons of taxes on you. He's going to be corrupt. And the people were like, great, that's what we want. And they got King Herod, and he was terrible.
Yeah.
Same in the era that Jesus was here, there was King Herod, and this group called the Sadducees were a bunch of religious guys that said, hey, God wants to make Israel great again, so we will partner up with Herod, even though he is somewhat of a despicable character, because that's how we're going to make Israel great again. And I think we're in that season, and I think we will reap a harvest of those choices. And so again, those of us who are outside of that circle need to just be attentive to where is divine wisdom going to take us to take care of one another in the midst of what I think could be a really dark time.
Well, and so my sort of rose-colored glasses back in 2016, before Trump won, before 2017 when he was inaugurated, my thought was like, hey, this version of American democracy, and from the signing of the Declaration of Independence forward, is almost 250 years old. In our generation, we Xers, who are kind of these tweeners between the boomers and the millennials, we grew up with just taking a lot of things for granted that were in the near past, but from birth forward, it's like, oh, it's always been this way, and it hasn't always been this way. And so my thought was, it can be a really good thing for people in our era to choose, hopefully, an improved version of American democracy again. Like that, like it is not a bad thing to renew a commitment to. And folks who have listened to these shows know I feel democracy as a spiritual connection. I feel a spiritual practice for me is a commitment to democracy, which means making room for other people, valuing the things you do together, valuing community, valuing cities, all these things, right? So like, to me, democracy is so totally spiritual, and it can be a really good thing to choose it yet again. So that was my sort of Pollyanna rose-colored of Trump won. I'd say I'm still sort of camped out in that space. I think it's a little shocking to consider, like, okay, well, what's it going to take for everything to sort of break enough to where people are choosing and renewing democracy and perfecting it, et cetera. I mean, that's a little scary, but I guess it is what it is.
Well, and I would, again, to play into this analogy of this Hebrew text and story, it was January 6th this week. And 4 years ago, we had a riot trying to overthrow the government. we survived that. I heard a lot of Trump supporters saying, "Well, he left the White House, but but he tried not to,"
Right.
and and then we survived that as a nation by the sweat of our brow and
Yeah.
the luck of the draw or whatever, and we put him back in, and wonderful for the Democrats to be honoring of democracy, no riots this time. Everybody who needed to go poop in the Capitol did it in the bathrooms, not on anybody's desk. But at the same time, you're like, we're handing the keys over to this guy.
Yeah.
And, so it's a little bit like we were saved from ourselves, and we're like, no, let's try that again. That was kind of
Yeah.
crazy fun. Let's do it one more time. So
Yeah. Well, so yeah, just to kind of like recap and tie all this up in a bow for your 2025 feeling of it's
which you're good at
done.
doing. I need you to do that. Yes.
As a observer and a person who's been like listening and chafing at times, and as to like kind of what you were trying to steer towards or speak about or whatever, I remember, yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely fair to say over the last 8 years, your agitation has been like, how do I prove this case? I'm litigating this case that what is being smeared on the walls, literally in this case, 4 years ago,
Mhm.
is not of Christ. It's not Christ-like. So if you're going to do the Trump thing, do not do it in the name of Jesus. And that was just like, and it really came from you reading letter from a Birmingham jail, Martin Luther King, which
Right.
again, hello, Gen Xers, why do we not study this stuff more in school? But in our 40s, we're reading this and you're like, oh shit, I don't want to be like the white moderate in my era, because I can't guarantee that if you were to rewind and drop me, into the time period when Martin Luther King Jr. wrote that, I don't know what side I would be on. And you're like, okay, we're seeing this movie from history. I don't want to look forward, tell my kids and grandkids someday, like, yeah, I didn't want to split my church and da da da. You're like, by golly, I will take a stand. And so you did, and you did it in a way that was very, very, very objectionable to a lot of people, and just kind of did the like, well, I'm just gonna be more aggressive with this message, and kind of whoever will hear it will hear it.
Because that's my natural gift.
And your natural gift, and like, yeah, I mean, you were like a sports guy for however 20 years
Yeah.
or 30 years or whatever. So anyway, so this has been the sand in your pants for 8 years. And so when you
there's an analogy. Did a pearl come out of it, I guess, is the question.
I mean, I guess time will tell. But speaking of sand, as you walk back from the pier the Saturday after New Year's Day, you came back and you're like, you know what? I don't feel the responsibility to convince people of this any longer. Like, let it go. And then whoever wants to be in a space of like, what are we doing from here? And really, mostly for you, I think it's a lot about spirituality and, mental health and emotional well-being. The political angle for you is, I think, mostly just because for so long the evangelical church has tied its future and its religion to politics, but you don't do that. It's just like that's happening around you, right?
Yeah, and I think that the evangelical religion we grew up in is antithetical to mental health and living well, because of the bad theology and the bad politics and all of those things, and now
Yeah.
tying itself to a man who has built his power on doing the opposite of seeking justice for the poor, the foreigner, the marginalized, and the economically disadvantaged. But yeah, and so it was naive of me to think facts, humor, shame, any of those things
Chick,
could change those
theatrics.
minds.
Yeah.
But I think that's what I was supposed to do. And now I just have great peace that, for a while I had to go through lament of like, oh shit, the people around me really, really do want this, and now I just have real peace that I get to walk out my health journey and all of this. And I'm going back to get my master's. And when Christians say the stuff they say about me online, I love a poem I read recently that talked about, when people look at you like a monster and call you a monster, grab that power, that beauty and power of a monster. Carry the monster's power with you. Be a part of the long lineage of monsters that have been burned by the good people of culture. And I am just so in love with that concept of like, they called Jesus a monster. They said he had demons. And so when those things are said about me, it's like, yay, I'm getting treated like the religious people treated Jesus. Isn't that beautiful? And so, yeah, it's just been a kind of a neat shift, if I can use a much overused word, from 2024 to now looking ahead. And so I think this time has been becoming the caterpillar in the cocoon, being broken down to primordial ooze, as I always say, and now maybe getting a chance to like emerge as a new creation, as a butterfly, as it would be. So
Yeah.
and it did. It came totally out of nowhere. I was not expecting it. I was being introspective because the ocean always does that to me. But really, this thought of like a New Year's spiritual turn and pass was a really unexpected and beautiful thing.
Right. I think for as a person who usually trails behind you by a couple of seasons, whether it's a year or two, whatever, um, I feel like for me, and as a person who I don't feel called to be like speaking into the sort of structure of the church, that for me is kind of personal. My structural change work is in community and governmental systems.
Yeah.
So, but I will just say personally,
and I would argue that is a call or a purpose perhaps on your life.
Yeah, I 100%. I mean, yeah, I know, I believe that. But I feel like I just feel like the deconstruction, like all the bones broken, reset, new person in that way. Like I don't feel a tie to the church that I knew for. I'm grateful for much of what I learned and what I've been exposed to, but I just like I don't feel like like I just cannot see anything there anymore that I want to
That's
go back to.
interesting.
Yeah.
Did you was there a grieving process for you in it, or
I
'cause
think early on,
yeah, I
yeah.
think maybe that's part of what this has been for me, is like having that time of lamentation to like grieve and be angry and all of those things. So, yeah, what was that like for you?
Um, I've described it before as um, on the one hand, feeling very sad and scared and kind of like, well, then what is all like, what is even life about anyway? Like, what is the point of all this? Because we came from a culture of, such a focus on like prophetic words and, like every little thing you would ascribe meaning to, like the oil
Yeah.
spot on the parking, on the parking lot where you pulled up would be like, I know Jesus gave me the parking spot and I'm pretty sure he also put a prophetic oil spot. I mean, like it was, I'm being a little facetious, but kind of like that. And then as all that just got like stripped away, it's like, well, I felt at times a little bit like kind of like life is meaningless, therefore. But in the middle of that and working through all those thoughts and emotions, I also felt like I was held still in a jello mold of love. I just kept seeing like a little cartoon character that like ran into a jello mold and was just like stuck. And I knew that the thoughts, the deconstruction, the, questioning, all of that kind of stuff, I knew it was okay. I was like wrapped like in my very core is like, I know I'm okay. And I know I know there is perfect love, but man, the rest of this stuff sucks. Like, like just having all that stuff kind of burned off you.
Mm. You know, what's interesting, as you know, I'm super fascinated by atheist podcasts now. I am not an atheist, but I'm
Which is
fascinated.
frankly a big deal. I mean, do you know how many pastors that you and I have come in contact with that have gone through a deconstruction journey and have ended up in a place where they're like, there is nothing past death. Like
Yeah.
they are so I mean, it's kind of cool if I guess maybe I shouldn't feel like, judged one way or the other, but like we deconstructed, but we have kind of landed in a place where we have awareness and connection and value for spiritual something, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. I don't believe in a guy with a beard sitting on a throne deciding, who is going to get the best parking spot at the mall while a child is dying of cancer over here. I don't believe in that guy. But I do believe we have connection to something
Yeah.
bigger and interdimensional. But the interesting thing about these podcasts is I keep hearing this argument, because I've argued like human purpose is what keeps me from ever being an atheist. Like what tells us there's a purpose? It's got to be something bigger than ourselves. And what's been interesting is to hear atheists say, well, wait a second. For a Christian, life is meaningless because it's all a binary question. Did you say this prayer? Yes or no? And I was listening to this caller the other day. They were like, if Adolf Hitler said a prayer on his deathbed, does he go to heaven? And all of the people that he destroyed who hadn't said that prayer are in hell. And the Christian was like, well, yes, that's how it works, And so they're like, so life is meaningless. Doing something good means nothing as long as you can say that deathbed prayer. But for an atheist, this life is where I do good and I get to impact people and change the world. And I'm not betting on there being something else out there. And that sort of changed my perspective on that a little bit, because Christians are always like, well, if you're an atheist and there's no God, why don't you just go out there and steal everything and kill everybody? And it's like, no, I don't want to go out there and steal everything and kill everybody.
Right.
And I don't need a guy on a throne to tell me differently,
By the way, just to prove that watching reality TV does in fact have value on many levels, I heard this amazing phrase last week when watching a spinoff of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. The spinoff is called Selling Salt Lake City. It's a real estate show. And one of the ladies in the cast is a deconstructing Mormon, and she referred to the evangelical God as the Sky Daddy.
Sky Daddy.
She's like, I don't believe in a Sky Daddy. And I love that. I've used it probably 3 times in sentences in the last week alone. Not down with the Sky Daddy. It's like, that's exactly what we were taught growing up, that's like how to imagine.
The Sky Daddy who loves his kids so much that if they don't worship him the right way, he will set them on fire for all of eternity. That is.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got this, I'm done at the turn of the new year. The title of the show is I'm Done. And for you, it's I'm Just Starting. So what does I'm just starting mean to you as we turn?
I'm just getting started
from a year to the next.
In part, I think it's the other side of the coin. And I try to, for people who get stuck with the Paul version, sort of, I'm like the kind of optimistic, like, okay, but how about let's think about it this way. So I feel pretty renewed going into 2025, pretty optimistic. I'm not saying you don't also, because you just explained you feel lighter, and that's good. But the way you express it is so different than the way I am expressing. So here's what I'm excited about and kind of what my intentions are for the year. I have 6 things. 3 are a little more serious and like spiritual kind of and connected, and the other 3 are a little more frivolous. Number 1, I feel like I'm just getting started and very excited about this practice of contemplative prayer. So for all of you who are listening, and you're like, what? You're just hearing about it? Yes, I'm just hearing about it. But I have been a prayer person my whole life, but I always prayed with an agenda. And I was always petitioning heaven to do what, I thought was right. And now I'm going at spiritual connection through contemplative prayer after reading Cynthia Burgall, I think is the way to say her name's work on contemplative prayer. So that's got me excited. One,
Can
two.
you give a little bit more on that contrast between sort of intercessory prayer as a Christian to contemplative prayer now?
Can we also let's find a really great person. And those of you who are listening, either live or after the fact, send us I don't know that we could get a person like Cynthia Burgall, but let's get some people on to help us with this, because it's such a cool concept. And I think it's just awesome, but it's a little hard to explain. So it basically is a practice where the book I'm reading is recommending 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening. You open yourself up to just the awareness of God. It doesn't have to be a Christian God. It's just divine, perfect love, whatever you can fill in the blank there. It's just shifting your focus from your thoughts, which are running crazy all the time, 60,000, 70,000 thoughts a day. It's slowing that down and just saying, no, I just want to be aware of the presence of God /love / you fill in the blank as you'd like. And there's all different. So it's kind of like the absence of thoughts, and instead just being aware and being sort of taken in by and being enveloped by this presence of love. It's pretty cool. So
I think in my mind, what I'm hearing a little bit in that is going from beseeching, oh God,
yes,
right. The
you
Elijah
said in your
story,
word, God, the blah, 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 and da, 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 the way we were taught to intercede in the evangelical charismatic circles.
In the Elijah story, they were literally cutting themselves trying to get, fire to come from heaven.
Yeah.
And this is, no, I'm just going to sit in the moment. My therapist all the time is I'm like, what do I do? We've discovered this. What do I do? And she's always like, let's just sit with this.
Yeah.
Let's just sit with what we've discovered now. And let's just feel this moment. What does it feel like in this moment? We don't have to fix anything. We don't have to change anything. Just feel this discovery. And
yes. Yeah. It's very inspirational. I've had a couple of sessions. I've been trying this out maybe 5-6 times. On a couple of occasions, I have felt the most overwhelming sense of peace and true connection with, I'm going to say, wholeness that I've ever experienced in my life. And it was oh my goodness gracious, that is some seriously awesome stuff. And then the other times have been more frustrating. And you have those moments you're I want to have that same experience again. And so it definitely is a practice. I'm definitely needing to learn and all that. But that has me excited. 1, 2, related. I also have found some real excitement and I don't know, just enthusiasm around meditation, guided meditations. And so contemplative prayer is specifically, you're not thinking, you're trying to just be aware of the presence of the divine. And then meditation is where you're focusing in on rewiring your brain and capturing those thoughts that are self-defeating and be that's interesting. I'm going to turn that around. And what if that's not true? What if it's not true that whatever, you wake up, your feet hit the floor and your human brain is just instantly programmed to always think the same stuff. So using meditation as a way to capture that and to think differently, so that goes together. And then third is just physical strength. I've worked out my whole life, but I've always gone at it, I think, with the wrong intentions or motivation. And also I'm now seeing the 3 things I just mentioned, they all are integrated, mind, body, spirit. So I have kind of a new approach and an enthusiasm and for a new approach of these 3 things coming together. So those are my 3 serious things that I want to practice at in 2025. And then my, like, I don't
Let me
know.
let me mention real quick that Iconic Punk Oz says that they practice mindfulness. I believe I met Oz in Temecula on my trip. So good to see you, Oz, on IG. But mindfulness is a practice for them as well. So FYI.
Very nice. Well, yeah, throw in the recommendations and what's useful to all of you. There's so many good resources out there. It's like almost a little overwhelming, to be honest. Okay, now more in the spirit and vein of 2024. Here's what I'm carrying forward in 2025.
Okay.
Intention number 4. I actually do want to be more of a reader in 2025, and so I've bought myself a Kindle, and it's coming on Friday. So this is like, so I don't have to carry around all the books and doesn't give you the blue light. So I'm going to be a little more of a reader. Sounds a little contradictory, but I also do have an intention to keep up with every cast of Real Housewives. Now that I have watched all the back episodes, I will watch all the current episodes of 2025. And then lastly, I'm very committed to some kind of regular cadence for either a facial or a therapeutic massage.
Yeah.
Like every couple of weeks if I can afford it, but for sure once a month.
There you go.
That's my 2025.
So this is
shell.
And this goes for me too, but it just brought to mind when you bought a sewing machine.
Yeah. But that was COVID. I was making COVID masks. That was so legitimate of a purchase.
That one didn't last very long, but I think this one will last longer.
Do you know how hard it is to freaking sew? Like I could not thread that goddamn bobbin.
I want nothing to do with it for sure. And then we bought pickleball equipment, which we still say we're going to do it.
We're going to do that in 2025.
So a lot of other people are joining you in the reading thing.
Okay.
So did you feel something spiritual in these as a shift of the new year?
Well, my first 3 represent my like, okay, there's something to these things. This contemplative prayer, you know, being more intentional with meditation and the physical strength training, which I'm just getting older and I need to be about that. Like, so I feel an intensity and a commitment to like, I'm excited about that. And then the other 3 are like, and while I'm thinking about it, don't forget, these are also things that I want to have happen in 2025.
Yeah. So Suzanne wants to have a book club with you. So just FYI.
I like the idea there. Yes, if we were to start maybe which would we just like on the Evangelicalish page ask for recommendations?
I guess so. Yeah. Didn't you just read a Malcolm Gladwell book?
Well, I'm listening to that on Audible, and that is The Revenge of the Tipping Point. And that, I mean, anything Malcolm Gladwell is going to just like rock my ever-loving world.
That's interesting. I just saw he has a TED Talk called I missed the tipping point or something. So maybe
that's kind of the nature of this, you know, this update of the Tipping Point book.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I'm listening to that. My process is, if it's something I'm interested in, but I don't have time to like read it, I get it on Audible. And then if I like it, then I have been getting like hard copies, but I'm going to try the Kindle. So we'll see.
Well, a whole bunch are ready to jump into your book club.
That's a good idea.
Or you could read Religious Right, Religiously Wrong.
We obviously we have to start with that, or that's like our companion book because it's a novel and it's a good story. And then I have like a little series of books that like, you know, 3 or 4 books in a row that are like, yeah, this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, or like, really, it's been really good. Yeah.
Super good. And again, Kelly Dalton joined as a subscriber this week. She bought a book. And so if you're able to go to evangelicalish.com to join, please do. The thing that is I heard Joan Baez talking about this on a podcast today, who, by the way, is DID, multiple like me. I didn't know. And she was talking about the importance of silence and how for her, the music and the words, and she's now written a book of poetry, come as you're just sitting there. And And for her, she realized, even before she knew she had DID, she was writing poetry and then would sign a name to it that wasn't her name. And it was, when she got silent, that she could hear these voices inside saying, "We're here," and then they were able to say, "And there was this trauma in your childhood, and it's a key to unlocking some peace and healthiness." And so that silence is really important, and I don't think we're taught silence in American culture, and certainly not in
No.
evangelical culture very much.
Well, and I mean, maybe our grandparents, right? Like, um, where they would talk about like when the radio came out and there would be like one show a week that everyone would look forward to and huddle around the radio, and like the whole country was hearing it together and like wrapped up in this story. Like we hear stories of that from, people who are still alive, or maybe they're starting to pass away, like that's what it was like. Fast forward to now, where you've got content all the time coming at you. I am very anxious for this pendulum to swing. And I notice, like with our kids that are now, early 20s.
Well, they were talking about it
they
this week.
they self-regulate quite a lot on their social media. They have had to learn to put their phones down. They are aware of the science, the brain science around what, constant social media does to you and that sort of thing. So I feel like with their kids, maybe that's like, we got to get it figured out by then. And hopefully, please God, let there be some kind of appropriate regulation.
Well, our kids were talking this week about, our son, I think, was about how there was destination viewing, and you only had 3 channels and everybody watched the same thing at the same time. They all were talking about it. And it really did hit me like, yeah, I'm glad to have 100 channels and you can watch Real Housewives whenever you want. And it's wonderful to live in that space. But gosh, I do also remember when Miami Vice came out and we're like, oh man, I can't wait to see, what Crockett and Tubbs have going on this weekend. What will be the song that they play that will be the main song, and then we would all talk about it, and the next day, like, wow, did you see that last night? That experience is lost and gone.
Yep.
And
well,
so that progress does have collateral damage sometimes.
And that concept is very prominently displayed in Malcolm Gladwell's book, Revenge of the Tipping Point. Like, because, his whole, sort of study and observation and the way he weaves these stories together in such an amazing way is all about how it's almost like sort of groupthink, like how it is the case that a population level of people, whatever is the population level, go from thinking this to this in a short period of time, or like, what is that process like? And he points out that, as Antifa U and the live stream is saying, when there were just a few channels, right? Like the culture shaping that was going on, it's just very different now. And I said this the other day to you, and you were like, I'm not going to do that. But I kind of am thinking I might even, like, I have never in my life listened to Joe Rogan. And
wait, now where did that turn come from?
Well, where this came from is there are 70 million people, or whatever is the number, like he's this loud voice in this one bubble that I don't have any connection to.
Oh, I see.
Don't
okay.
ever.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, I'm frustrated by the fact that we're all in these separate worlds. And at the very least, I just want to know, like, what are people over there talking about?
By the way, a lot of his audience are very angry at him now.
Oh, because, why is that?
His whole thing was, I'm the common man, we just get on here and shoot the shit. Yeah. And then Spotify gave him, $250 million. And now Spotify is doing forced ads in Rogan. They now are even people who are paying money for membership of Rogan's podcast above the membership in Spotify are getting the ads, and people are like, okay, you're not the common man anymore, Joe.
He's gone commercial.
You're,
Yeah.
you're commercial and a greedy bastard. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they're not very happy. And it's hard to be the common man when you got $250 million in the bank.
Yeah. Well, okay. So in the middle of this, golly gee, national and global, like divisions of people per their social media channels or whatever, what I always come back to is like, you know what, in my own community, that doesn't have to be true. I don't have to be isolated from people who are in my kids' class, parents from my kids' schools, or like you can still connect with people in your own local community. So let this be also our 2025 focus is like connect locally, people. Like if you can get involved, find a way to show up at something that's not directly about you in some way, get involved in something in your local community, meet people, talk to people who you would not normally talk to. That's how we take democracy. Like that's how we reknit the fabric of our communities and our society.
And I will be rooting for you all the way as I stand in allyship with the people who are in danger by the choices made by Americans and loving being that person.
And these things are connected, right? Like if you're in community and in connection with people who are in harm's way in your own neighborhood, your own community, boy, you talk about being drawn into the fight and the response.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Time for our final segment. And it is What's on My Mind? What's on your mind?
We always get to this point of the show, and I am so like, I just verbally digested literally every single thought in my mind for the last 40 minutes. So it's a little hard for me, but I'll say this. So
you need to give yourself like a sticky note prompt or something.
I know.
And immediately saying sticky note means I'm old, but
Well, I think because I've been up to my eyeballs and elbows and like cleaning out closets, and therefore I've had some kind of, entertainment content going in the background for the last 2 days. What's on my mind is I'm so late to this party, but I'm just now watching Orange is the New Black.
Oh, that's true.
I feel like I missed a decade. Like it was a busy decade, but oh my God, it's so good and also intense. And if you haven't watched it and decide to watch it, there is a lot of content. You like, be careful about who you're around when you're watching it, because it's a lot of very real and intense things that get aired on that series. But the characters are so heartwarming and good. So like, I'm literally sitting here missing my jailmates right now. I really love that show.
I did the same. I went back and watched Breaking Bad. I was like one of the only people I knew that hadn't watched Breaking Bad. So it's kind of fun. And one thing I would pay lots of money for is if there was a device you could use to make yourself forget a series you had watched. Like like I could go back and watch The Sopranos or The Americans again and like wipe them from my brain and watch them as if I had never seen them before. That would be so much fun.
Which I feel like is, I keep saying this, like Severance, the TV show, is gesturing at that, right? Like when you walk across this, this threshold, you don't remember. Why couldn't there be that for TV shows? Yeah.
Yeah, which season 2 of Severance is coming out very soon, and I can't wait. It's been forever.
I know.
All right, since you took my what's on my mind earlier of our tequila shots, I just want to play this clip of this parliamentarian from Canada who was responding to Trump's desire to make Canada the 51st state, and I thought she was very clever and sound. She was talking about, I guess, our incoming president was mentioning that Wayne Gretzky should run for prime minister. And she was reminding Mr. Trump that you don't run for prime minister in a parliamentarian system. And she had a few other thoughts for our incoming POTUS in regards to the relationship between Canada and the United States. So let's listen.
Give yourself or get yourself a briefing on the nature of parliamentary democracy, a Westminster parliamentary system and a constitutional monarchy where no one runs for prime minister. We have elections for members of parliament. We don't get to pick and choose among our billionaire friends for who gets a seat at the cabinet table. If they're not a member of parliament,
Boom.
the Canadian system is different from that of the United States of America. I suggest that Mr. Trump find one of his grandchildren's school books and look at the year 1776, which may explain a few things to him about why our systems of government are different. I don't want to belittle Mr. Trump, but on the other hand, hey, Donald, have we got a deal for you? You think we want to be the 51st state? Nah, but maybe California would like to be the 11th province. How about it? California, Oregon, Washington, you've got geography in common with us. And not only that, we've already got a carbon trading system between California and Quebec. We've got some strong alliances on our west coast from British Columbia. There's been a lot of academic papers on the idea of Cascadia. So California, Governor Newsom, and Washington State, Jay Inslee, and newly elected Governor of Oregon, Tina Kotek. How about it? Want to put a referendum to your citizens? Because this is what you deal. Have we got a deal for you? This is what you get. Free healthcare. Universal free healthcare. No more one-year-olds who suddenly fall off the Medicaid list and their parents are in the news because they're trying to do a GoFundMe so they can get their daughter to a doctor. Universal free healthcare. And guess what? Those gun laws that your Congress is too afraid to pass because of the national gun lobby, we already got our strict gun laws. That's why we have the safest streets around the world, or at least in the United States, by the way, the risk reasons.
All right. We'll stop it there, but yeah.
Yeah, she was firing. It's interesting because I will say in this last year, the our state legislators from the middle part of the state, I noticed that they were having a lot of like summits and visits from Canadians. And like, yeah, I guess the shared cap and trade system or something. But yeah, that's kind of hits home.
I have wondered, and I think somewhat frivolously, and I don't think it could ever happen, but is there a time, where California might say, Mississippi, we just don't have a lot in common with you anymore, or something to that effect.
I don't know.
See where it would go. And
Yeah.
British Columbia, we feel more akin to you, and something like that could work out. But it's, I don't know. I wonder, excuse me, I wonder if this is all sort of a smokescreen, throw a shitload of crazy, cracky shit out there to distract from the fact that grocery prices and gas prices aren't going to go down, or something
That's
like
right.
that.
Eggs are still $9 a dozen. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's going to be a crazy 4 years. Get ready for the ride that's about to come. All right. I shouldn't have ended on that note necessarily. I was going to end on the note of drinking tequila shots with your kids, but
well, I guess we can go back to that, and we'll finish where we started, which is we are just entering the stage where our adult children are like so fun to hang out with, and it has been a very special time.
Yeah, I did not expect us to be taking tequila shots with our children.
I had not had a tequila shot since I was 21, literally. And they brought for sure.
Oh, it was not a shot. It was it
was like 3 fingers. And I was like, oh my God, what is going to happen? But I'm very proud to say, well, the older you get, the less I think alcohol affects you.
Okay.
So,
okay.
All right.
All right, everybody. Friday, we will be live again at noon Pacific with Amber Cantorna Wild, who came out of the closet living in Colorado Springs, Colorado of all places. And her father was on the design team of Adventures in Odyssey at Focus on the Family. And that's going to be an amazing story to hear. You will not want to miss it. That will be live at noon on all our usual live stream locations.
That's going to do it. I'm going back to closet duty. I'm got another 2 or 3 hours of work. I will report back on Friday about the spick and span cabinetry and closets and the
But
Swearengin.
are you going back to Real Housewives or Orange is the New Black?
The problem with that is I'm current on Real Housewives. So
Oh.
2 shows dropped this week. Do you think I watched them today? Of course I did. So I'm kind of in and out of Orange is the New Black.
Nice.
Yeah.
For everybody who comes and hangs out with us in the live chat, we love you guys so much. And if you haven't joined us in the live, do so. And Ashley will be updating on the book club, I guess, very soon. All right. Good night, everybody. We're starving and we're going to get some dinner, and we'll talk to you soon.